Unmute.
Good
Hello.
afternoon, LeRoy. How are you?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
All right. We're going to get started. LeRoy, we thank you for your time.
Okay.
Got about 8 or 9 people already queued up with some questions they want to ask you. So I'm going to lead off with Arnie Stapleton from the Associated Press. And after him, we will go to Andrew Badillo. Go ahead, Arnie.
Thanks. Hey, LeRoy. Nice to see you
Hi.
after all these years.
Yeah, good to see you, my brother.
Hey, let me ask you, the lessons you learned from your mother, Eunice, patience, persistence. Can you just kind of speak to that? I know she kind of helped you with a Hall of Fame speech, a decade ago, long before she died. Just if you could just kind of speak to what she meant to you and how she taught you those lessons in your career.
Well, she taught me, thanks, Arnie, good to hear from you. I think and I appreciate you asking about my mother first, actually. She taught me a long line of things that you have a special needs kid who can't go outside and can't go swimming, can't do sleepovers. You gotta be a patient person. And then I think it all came about when my grandmother and my mom had a conversation that they basically said that God gives everybody a talent. And I was like, okay, what's my talent? I don't have any. And my grandmother was saying, your talent is you have a unique ability to ignore anything that's negative. And that's the way it's going to work. So I pretty much had that in my mind the whole time. And I remember Lee Rimmel, shout out to Lee Rimmel. I love Lee Rimmel, rest in peace. He was everything to me, mainly to how to deal with you guys. But he one day came over to me and said that you made first team all decade. And at the time I was like, I didn't really, I didn't really understand what that was about. I mean, it was just a huge honor. And then before he walked off, he looked over his glasses on me. He said, you may one day be in the Hall of Fame, because that's pretty big. And I remember discussing it with my mom, and we started working on it right there. We started saying, what do you want to think? Who do you want to do this, and this? And, over the years, she passed away like 7 years, about 6.5 years ago. I remember talking to her, and she said, remember, when you get close, I think I was a semifinalist or something like that. Before you get upset that you didn't make it, remember a lot of guys are not going to be in this position. So enjoy the process. It's not, I mean, because even my mom told me I wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer, which I think, shout out to my mom for being honest. But she was always trying to say, it's okay to not make it out ballot. You just want to be in the room. Because once you're in the room, you're all goats. And my mom had a great perspective on it. So when I was a semifinalist, and then when I was a finalist, now this was bittersweet, because I got a chance to meet one of my heroes, Roger Staubach, and that meant the world to me, growing up a Cowboys fan and seeing him in Miami. And the pandemic happened, and I never just said anything about John Lynch or Atwater. We all want to make it. So I was just I had the same speech. And I know it's a long answer, but at the end, this what made me come to my calm. My mom told me have 2 speeches. One, if you get an A, you get an A, and one, if you get a C or a D. Have 2 speeches ready, but be the same student. So I tried to be consistent every year. When I was a finalist, I didn't get a knock, I got a phone call, but I also thought about, it may be a lot of guys not in this position, so I'm okay with the process. And I really did enjoy the process.
Awesome. Thanks, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you, Arnie. Andrew, you're up. Troy Geary on deck.
LeRoy, thanks for taking the time. Andrew Badillo with First Coast News here. Congratulations. You just spoke about your mother, but another person that I know means a lot to you, Corky Rogers. How important is your home, is where you formed into a great player, a great man? How important were those years under Corky, your times at Lee High School to you? And how do you sort of thank those people that are no longer here with you right now? How important is that to you?
Thanks for the question, Andrew. If you think about Pete Prisco, Sam Kavaris, Gene Fournette, these guys all covered me in high school. I hope I'm not giving away their age, but this was difficult for me because I thought at one point I was going to Terry Parker High School, and I'm there with one of my best friends, Wayne Gallman, was the star running back at Terry Parker. I was supposed to be his replacement in ninth grade. My ninth grade coach, Hammond Gracie, who really got me into sports, dual sports, because I just want to be a football player, but he said, no, you can play basketball as well. And I got a letter, Andrew, and that letter said, well, guess what? You're not going to Terry Parker anymore. You're going to Robert E. Lee High School. And I was like, okay, now this is the South. And I know what Robert E. Lee stands for. But my mom said, most of the time you go to work, a lot of people don't like their bosses, but they got to work. So you can't change the name of the school. You still got to get an education. My mom was brilliant. So when I got there, I remember Coach Rogers coming over to me. He was so important to me because I was in ninth grade. I wanted to play on JV. And then they said, well, you could play varsity, but I didn't make it. My 11th grade year, he came to my algebra class. Miss Gordon was my teacher, my favorite teacher at Lee. And he pulled me out of class. I said, oh boy, because I never got in trouble. I mean, but this is Coach Rogers, the winningest coach in the state of Florida. He says, you're playing varsity and I want you to start, but you got to play both ways because we don't have the numbers. And he just left. Coach Rogers was everything to me. Coach Rogers was the one that sat me down and told me that you got to go to college because where you're from in the inner city, those kids going to look up to you. And in the Blodgett homes in Jacksonville, poverty, humble beginnings. Oh, he said, you're going to do some great things when you go back to the projects. And he was right. And then my senior year, I remember him escorting Coach Bobby Bowden into the basketball gym. And he just said, this kid just needs a chance. Because I was going to be a Proposition 48. Andrew, I had no idea what that was. Coach Bowden sat me down. I mean, Coach Corky Rogers sat me down. Matter of fact, his wife was very instrumental as well. It said, this is the process. They're going to pick 6 guys to go to college, but you can't play your freshman year, but it's okay. You've been waiting your whole life. So Coach Rogers was and now it's Riverside, and shout out to Riverside, but Lee High School meant a lot to me because it really shaped me as a person, really on and off the field, especially when you're going to a school that is beating everybody in football, and especially in the city. So it was very impactful, and I appreciate you asking because I think that's what really shapes me as a person, my leads at Lee High School.
Thanks, LeRoy. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrew. Troy Geary, and then next would be the Orlando Ledbetter.
Hey, LeRoy, how you doing?
Hey.
Did you think when you started the Lambeau Leap all those years ago and start this phenomenon and tradition all these years later?
No. Did I say no? No. I remember that day so clearly because I remember getting to the stadium and I went over to the thermostat and I saw a minus. I'm from Duval County, as Andrew knows. And I saw a minus next to a 16, and I thought they really forfeit games. I didn't think we play in games that cold, but I just remember causing a fumble. And Mike Holmgren always said, if you get a fumble, you're a defensive player, don't lateral the ball. But Reggie wanted to do it. It's Reggie White, right? So Reggie laterals this ball, I'm running down the sideline, and it's all spontaneous. And when I jumped up there and the hugging the best fans. Well, I take that back. They're not fans, they're owners, because you can actually have a stock certificate to keep the team in Green Bay since 1919. I appreciate that. So that was my way of loving the fans and hugging them. And Robert Brooks made a song about it, and it really blew up. And real quick, I met the president, Clinton. So President Clinton wants to visit the Packers. If you cover the Packers, you know this story, but he comes in, he has Secret Service, and he got all this, And I told Robert Brooks, I said, do you have the CD? Yes, we had CDs back then. He gives it to me. He said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to give it to the president. He said, no, you can't do that. You can't give the president anything. I said, just get. So he gives it to me. So I go over to Clinton, President Clinton. I give it to him. I say, Mr. President, my friend Robert Brooks made a song about the Lambeau Leap called Jump in the Stands. And here's a copy. And he said, what's the Lambeau Leap? I looked at him like, you don't know about the leap? It's amazing. He Secret Service was like, are we supposed to like tackle this kid for giving him this CD? But that one, it was so impactful. And then the song blew up. And now we're the only team that can say that not only do we love our fans on paper, but we love them in person as well. And that's what the LEAP stands for.
Thank you, LeRoy.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to go to one of our selectors, the esteemed D. Orlando Ledbetter, known as D. Led, and then we'll go from D. Led to G. Smith.
All right, thanks for having me. Hey, LeRoy, just a couple,
Hey,
real
D.
quick. How you doing?
I'm
All
doing
right,
good.
just one question I didn't. We had all these years I hadn't heard you talk about the special needs, being a special needs youth and overcoming that in your youth. And then could you discuss that and how proud you are at this time in this moment? And then football wise, how Fritz Shermer used to move you around and so forth to attack defenses from all levels and all places.
Thank you, D, for that question. I love you, my brother. Good to see you. It was hard. It was hard. In the projects, poverty, single parent home, going back and forth to Hope Haven was a children's hospital at that time, being extremely pigeon-toed. And here it is, I'm telling my mom I'm playing in the NFL. She's like, I just don't understand. She said, okay, why football? I said, you know what, Mom, the reason why I want to play in the NFL, because it's the ultimate team sport. I can actually have 10 other guys on the field help me win a game. And she thought that was amazing. And if it wasn't for my teammates, I wouldn't be doing this interview. I mean, can you imagine, if you're a special needs kid, you get to school, you get bullied for wearing hand-me-downs and not being able to eat the hot lunches because I have free and reduced lunch, not being picked for like when you go on the playground because I had these braces on my legs, and my teachers were amazing because they never made me feel like I was different. Matter of fact, down at some of the Beauclair Elementary, the special needs department, the teachers were fantastic. I felt like a normal student, but I just knew one day that God was going to give me the ability to not only ignore the kids, but to say that I don't necessarily have to run a 4-1, 4-2, 4-3 to make it, especially out of my environment. If you just, that environment, because you got all these negatives, single parent, poverty, but to throw in special needs and not being able to read, I mean, to where my first new shirt, the way I popped the tag was from the Salvation Army. I mean, that kind of stuff really just kind of developed my mindset. So that's who I represent, D. I represent the kids. If you got a special needs kid, my son, LeRoy Butler IV, has autism. That's my guy. So it means a lot. Fritz Shermer, to say he changed my life is an understatement. Ray Rhodes called me up and said, we're moving you because we want to draft Terrell Buckley at corner. You got to go to safety. So Ray Rhodes was like, he had this plan for me. You can cover the third receiver, tight ends, but you can maybe go out to the quarterback. When Fritz came in, this is why I love him. He didn't come in being like the smartest guy in the room. He said, I got a guy on the cusp of being a very good player. I'm going to let him do his thing, but he has to accept coaching. And that goes back to my teachers. To me, the teachers are the smartest people in the world, because somebody's going to teach me to add 2 letters and it turns into a number and it's a circle and write a paragraph about it. Because D, let's be honest, I'm not putting in those 16-hour days. I'm not doing that. That's what coaches do.
Yeah.
So if they're going to put in those kind of hours, I owe it to them to listen and let them shape me. And he took me to the next level. So Fritz was everything. And he was the first coach to ever ask me, well, what do you think? I love that.
Mhm.
So Fritz, rest in peace to Fritz. I just miss and love him.
Thanks, LeRoy.
Thank you very much, Orlando.
Thank you, D-Led. On to G. Smits, and then Wes, you'll be next.
LeRoy, how you doing? Thank you very much. LeRoy, you touched on what Coach Rogers meant to you. What are your thoughts going to be about Coach Bowden, what he meant to you and what he did to further your development as a football player and as a man?
Yeah. When you're saying Coach Bowden, it's like a little transition. I remember Leon Barrett, my high school defensive coordinator. I said, Coach, I think I'm gonna play defense when I, go to Florida State. And me and Coach Barrett, Coach Warner, Coach Belger, we always had these conversations. But Leon Barrett was saying, Corky gonna put you in position to where they'll watch you on offense as well, because I had to play both ways. And when Coach Rogers looked me in the eye, he said, I think you're gonna like Coach Bowden. I said, why is that? Well, guess what? He only has one visit to a home, and he picked yours. I said, wait a minute. I'm Prop 48. I'm not gonna play my freshman year. He just loved, Coach Rogers loved Coach Bowden's faith, because he know I'm saved, a Christian young man. And he knew that Coach Bowden would do anything to win. As you know, Smitty, the punt Ruski, right?
Yep.
He said, that's the coach you should play for. Now, ultimately, I had to make my decision with my parents, with my mom, but I was so lucky. It made me say to myself, why is God choosing you to navigate these rough waters, but keep giving you great people? But you got to listen. And that was the reason why when I picked Coach Bowden, all these schools gave me letters, but when they found out I was a Prop 48, that was a difficult conversation with me and Coach Rogers. He said, a lot of these schools, they're not going to offer you once they find out, but the one school that's leaned into you is Florida State. So he kind of handed me off to Coach Bobby Bowden. And if Bobby Bowden was living today, he was the top person who would have presented me in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wes, and then Chris Roth.
Hey, LeRoy, you got me?
Yep. What's up, Wes?
How you doing, buddy? Hey, that kind of goes into my question, because I wanted to ask you quickly about Genesis and the pick to have her do it. Obviously, she's been with you, through all the everything you've done off the field now too. How meaningful was that to you to be able to have her present you, and also just being able to kind of walk through this process with her after such a long wait?
First of all, Wes, you have amazing hair. Thanks for that question, because my wife is platinum. I'm just so happy for her, because if you know our story and learn about us, I was married one time pretty much my whole career, and so was she, married previously. So I met her kind of after my career, and she really wasn't a football fan. She had to learn who I was, which is a pretty refreshing, because if you're in the state of Wisconsin and don't know LeRoy Butler, you don't have the internet. But she didn't know. But when I met her, we connected off the field, talked about things, family, faith, it was great. And then when we got married, as you know, Wes, at Lambeau Fields, because she wanted to embrace the history of the Packers. And that's just amazing to me. So when I thought about, as I just stated, Coach Bobby Bowden would have been my presenter, I said, who's next that really knows me after football, that can learn me? And it was my wife. So she's a presenter, and as well as Gilbert Brown. Because Gilbert Brown is my favorite teammate for 8 years. He was my locker mate. He's going to represent the players when he speaks, but my family, as blended as it is, the best person that knows me is Genesis. And I even put that in my vows. I said, you can't start the Bible without Genesis.
Thank you, Wes. Chris Ross and then Alec Lace.
What's up, Chris?
Hey, LeRoy, nice to see you. I know you won't say anything about I have nice hair. That's fine. I get it.
Well, you got a beard. I mean,
That's where I can grow. Anyway, you just mentioned Gilbert was your favorite teammate, but you will be joining two guys that you won a Super Bowl with in Canton. What does that mean to you? And then do you know which former teammates might be there for induction weekend to support you and cheer you on, if you will?
thank you, Chris, for that question. Yeah, I tell you what, Jim Porter, the new president, is amazing. To come up with this idea to have Woodson knock on the door, I just don't, I mean, I was emotionally taken back by that. But having Reggie White and Brett Favre, I mean, even like Jared Kramer and Dave Robinson, no, I love those guys because they're the living Hall of Famers. But when I looked over to my left and right and saw number 4 getting dressed, and when I saw 92 getting dressed, I said to myself, we got a chance to win today. As long as these two, and Brett never missed a game, but as long as these two guys are here in this locker room, I feel the comfort of just winning and just dominating games. And we did it for a long time. And it just means a lot to me, because if you think about the team of the 90s, we talk about their top defense. We had the number 1 offense, defense, and special teams. So shout out to Desmond Howard for that. But, you know, when you go in with some of your colleagues, it makes you feel really good, because I think the Bears have the most guys in the Hall of Fame. I think we're 2nd or 3rd or something. But it's just amazing when you see that, because I know what Kramer went through waiting 40 years or so, and I know what Dave Robinson went through. But when you can go in from Brett a few years ago, Woodson just last year, and the last thing I'll say about Gilbert Brown, his mom, she's like my mom, and the guy not only had the best cologne, because trust me, because I used it. He had the best cologne, he had the best food, he had the best clothes. Everybody liked him. He was the first guy to have like a Walkman type thing. You know, I know we had, okay, you millennials, give me a break. I mean, he's the first guy to actually explain to me about my emails. Like, we had emails and all. Gilbert's, I mean, the guy's platinum. I mean, he's just great. And he's a great guy, and he's funny. So just having him represent the team, my teammates, is great. I think the final list is Saturday, for guys to RSVP for my party who's also coming. So I'll probably know updated list this weekend. Maybe we'll release that. But I think we may have 25 to 30 guys that's going to come down, and I wouldn't have it any other way. If it was up to me, I'll bring all hundreds of my teammates from high school, college, you know, everywhere, to just see me represent them.
Thanks, LeRoy. Appreciate it. I'll see you in Canton.
Take care, buddy.
Thanks, Chris. Next up is Alec and then Peter Holland.
What's doing, LeRoy? Alec Lace here. I host First Class Fatherhood, focuses on fatherhood and family life.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, how much do you think overcoming or dealing with your physical disabilities as a child helped to prepare you to be a father of a child with autism? And what have you learned about yourself as a father having a child with autism?
Well, we have a lot of fun. And by the way, your hair is amazing too. We have a lot of fun. And I think the thing, having 6 daughters, okay, it was difficult to even think that I was going to leave this earth and have not a son. So he's the only child I know that wake up every day and say, Dad, I love you. He pays attention to the details of having fun. And the good thing about it is he has a lot of friends, but he loves wearing his jersey on Friday because it has his name on the back. But he's good at a lot of things, and whatever he's good at, that's what we concentrate on. And because he'll never do the Lambeau Leap, but for me, him saying a paragraph is the leap. Him can go on his own to school. Again, thank you to the special needs teachers, is like the leap for me. Anytime he says anything, which is a lot, it's like doing the leap. It's like winning the Super Bowl. It's like getting into the Hall of Fame, because every day he overcome obstacles. And when we were like reading stuff out of my book, I think he understands, like, your dad had it rough too, but I still made it. So whatever you want to do, and then matter of fact, before the pandemic, he tried football and he liked it. But when the pandemic, they kind of shut down, and LeRoy's like, I'm on to the next. What else can we do? So whatever he want to do, we try it. And if it don't work, we'll try something else. So that's what he's taught me. And I see a lot in him that I had, because the good thing about LeRoy, he's like me. He know how to ignore you if you're saying something negative, and it don't bother him. He's fine with it. But I just love everything about him. And all his teachings come from his great teachers at Gifford Elementary in Racine, Wisconsin, and his mom. And I have the wonderful pleasure of having the best godmother ever in Julia Witherspoon with Cops and Kids, because he can read because of her. And I love and respect that.
Yeah, very well said, LeRoy. You're a first-class father all the way. Congratulations on making the Hall.
Thank you so much, buddy.
All right, Peter Holland from Canton's hometown newspaper, and next would be Kyle Nash.
LeRoy, what's going on, man?
What's up, Peter?
My question for you is, the Hall of Fame just recently released about the new exhibit that will have that will make it look like a locker room. I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah.
But what tell me how much that really what was your first impression when you saw all the items, from your high school helmet to your uniform to the game ball from the Super Bowl and the pylon? What was your first impression when you first saw it?
Well, Peter, you get very emotional, but sometimes you forget I had that. Where did they find that? The Hall of Fame is platinum. They're like, give us this, you want this, you want this. I mean, I couldn't do it without the Hall of Fame volunteers, and the organization that they have to go through is truly amazing. They really make it easy for me. And Brent with the Packer Hall of Fame, he was involved throughout, so I have a locker there as well. And I wanted to put some all band stuff in there, of course, because all Madden was fire. I mean, if you didn't make the Pro Bowl or All Pro, that make all Madden. I mean, it's the best game of all time, by the way. But I just want to put some things in there. And I think each year or every other year, we may change out some things. But I thought it was important for me to put my high school helmet in there to let kids who tour that museum every day, hundreds of field trips and kids, this is a trip you must make in your lifetime. The Hall of Fame is truly at the tip of the sword when it comes to the history of their players. The focus is on the players. So when you do things like that locker, because I'm glad you asked that, Peter, because some people tweet me like, what's the blue helmet? And when one of my fans said, well, that's his high school helmet. Some guy goes, who has his high school helmet? I do. And the reason why, because I thought it would be something that one day that I could showcase and be proud of at Robert E. Lee High School.
Thanks, LeRoy. Looking forward to seeing you in Canton again.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter. This can serve as a reminder to everybody on the call that we are recording it, and we will have that audio posted as soon as possible after we're finished with LeRoy. And LeRoy, we'll probably take you offline and ask you if we can take that last answer and make a commercial out of it, because couldn't have gotten much better. Going now to Kyle and then Chris Burke.
First of all, congratulations there, Mr. Butler. Good to see you making the Hall of Fame. In particular to your position being a safety, you don't hear a lot of safeties being inducted lately. Sure, you got Lynch and you mentioned Atwater, those guys. Why is it you think it's difficult to get in as a safety into the Hall, and what special do you bring to the game to assure that that happened?
Well, it's a great question, because when I didn't make it, I wasn't upset with the voters. I won't calling them names. I would even tell my fans, like, don't be like jumping into Lynch mentions and Atwater's mentions and Woods. Don't do that, because sooner or later they'll hear the entire story that safety position is the only position that if you look behind you, there's no help. It's very important. It's very important. And for me, it was just so amazing, Kyle, because when Ray Rose had this discussion with me about blitzing the quarterback, covering tight ends, I'm like, this can be something great if we don't ever have to go to dime or nickel and be predictable. You can keep your base defense out there and shut down the run as well as the pass, and don't get too gimmicky. And he said, if you can do this, this will be great. So Fritz Sherman came in, took it to another level. And I remember having a discussion with Ed Donatel, Dick Duran, Bob Valicente. These guys were like, man, this is fun stuff when you can do this with safeties. And Bob Slowick. I mean, these guys were like, okay, I get it now. So a safety position is very, very important. And Rondé Barber is going to be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, not only because of the records, he was good. But he would do everything, intercept passes, sack quarterbacks, cover tight ends, cover receivers. When you can do multiple stuff like that, I just think that's the new wave of what Troy Polamalu. I mean, this guy's amazing. Brian Dawkins, these guys can do everything. So I was just, sooner or later, they're going to say these guys can do more than just line up in the middle of the field and intercept passes. They're doing more for their organization. And now you see guys like Jamal Adams, Mika Fitzpatrick, you know, Amos for the Packers, Baker. I love seeing these guys play, because that's what it was in the 90s when me and Merton Hanks and Darren Woodson, you know, we used to always, Tim McDonald, you know, we used to always have this thing about safeties being very, very important.
I love the response. And hey, as an O-lineman, I get the concept of looking behind you and not having help after that. It's all good.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, LeRoy, thank you for your time. We're coming close to the end here, folks. We asked LeRoy for about 30 minutes. We're right on that mark right now. So Chris Burke, real quick.
All right, thanks, LeRoy. Thanks for taking the time, and congratulations. You started out practicing against against Don Makowski, and then in comes Brett Favre, who was very raw. When you're practicing against him, how did, he was very raw, very improvisational. What was it like practicing against a quarterback like that, that's a wild stallion, for one? And then how do you think you helped him as he grew? And then once he developed, how did he help you guys as a defense? Because you're practicing now against the 3-time MVP later on in your career.
Yeah, great question. I'll make this really quick. Brett Favre was amazing. I don't have time to get into everything I want to say about him, but I remember him throwing an interception in practice, and he was kicking the dirt, and he was upset. I went to him and said, listen, if you think you could throw it over the cornerback's head, between the linebacker and before the safety, do it. It's my job to go get it back. Just play. So, and guess what? The 1 or 2 times guys caught touchdowns on me. Don't go Googling it. I'm upset. He would come down to the bench. Roy Lee, I got you. And he'd go out and throw a bomb. So it's a team thing. I wanted to play with a guy that wasn't scared. If you think you can do it, you got my support. I mean, the guy was just truly amazing. And it was very competitive on Fridays because that's red zone. So we talked a lot of trash. I mean, we had a lot of fun. I mean, because he knew the defense and we knew the offense, but it's the players like the Hall of Famers we're talking about that can separate you. So I just wish social media was going on back then in the night. Well, never mind. No, I don't. But it was some good stuff that we did and we had fun. So shout out to Brett Favre.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the time. We'll see you in Canton.
Thank you, Chris.
Everybody, thank you for participating. LeRoy, real quick, you mentioned your son. You're a girl dad too.
Oh yeah.
How about them? Are they fans of the football? Are they fans of the Packers? Are they fans of you?
Well, out of the 6, 3 of them, they're all in. Oh yeah, dad played. Oh, he played. 3 of them. The other 3, oh, what's my TikTok? Where's my makeup? When do I get my hair done? Do I get my feet done? So they're having a ball with this. I have a cookbook coming out with them. I just love and respect them because just because your dad's LeRoy Butler don't mean you're gonna get away with stuff. But it does help you. So we have, one, and they range from, my oldest is 36 years old, my favorite number, and my youngest just turned 18, all girls. And of course, my favorite, LeRoy Butler, is 11. So
Everybody, this recording will be up as soon as we can. And LeRoy, we will see you in Canton for your first public appearance, large-scale public appearance as a member of the class of 2022, 3 weeks from tonight at the 2022 Hall of Fame game. I know you can't wait. We can't wait to see you here. So again, we really appreciate you taking the time to share these great stories with everybody.
thank you so much for everybody's time. I really appreciate it. This is an honor, and it's an honor being here today to share these stories. Have a good day.
All right.